I gotta say, One Punch Man episode 23 is possibly the best episode of season 2 so far. And that's not to say that other episodes weren't good, but there's a lot of, the season in general has been a very mixed bag, with some episodes really rushing through things, a lot of pacing issues, a lot of visual issues, like really wonky and cardboard looking animation. But I think this episode really ramps it up in terms of storytelling, character work, and especially some stellar animation. And I think that comes in large part due to Garou. It seems like the episodes focused on Garou as a character really amps it up in terms of all around everything. And of course, we did get that episode with Suryu, which was really awesome. But the episodes with Garou, episode 3 versus freaking, Take Top Master, that was awesome. But this episode, wow, like we left off, he was, I thought that he was on the brink of collapse, basically. But he freaking pushes through. You know, if you haven't read the manga, you're thinking, geez, what is going to happen next? And how is he gonna get out of this situation? Is he gonna get captured? Because there's a bunch of A-class heroes. Like, A-class is nothing to scoff at. And especially with Garou in his condition after getting his ass kicked by Watchdog Man. But Gatling Gun dude basically gathers these A-class heroes, and he wants to prove a point. And I thought this was an awesome theme, and it shows that, okay, you know, most of the heroes kind of play into the class system of the Heroes Association, but there are some that really don't like it and they try to play against it. Of course, we see later that, you know, his philosophies aren't quite, you know, they aren't quite fleshed out, I guess you could say. I'm not using the right words, but hopefully you get my point across. But I really liked that theming, contrasting with Garou's theming, and also contrasting with other heroes like Fubuki, who really plays into the class system. And then My Mask, who's the top-ranked A-class heroes who prevents other people from getting into S-class. So, like, there's a lot of heroes playing into the class system and just playing that, you know, game, the Game of Thrones. But it's nothing like the Game of Thrones, but whatever. So, man, Garou just keeps getting more and more compelling, and he uses these heroes in this fight against each other. He uses the freaking big ball. I forget what that game is called, but it's a giant one of those games where you do the ball. And this is a heavy ball. Like, I didn't realize it was so heavy because this guy's just flinging it around like it's a like it's a Nerf ball. But Garou starts to smartly use the heroes, like, against them. Like, you can tell these heroes, they have a formation and somewhat of a plan, but they don't, you can tell that they're not quite used to a teamwork kind of scenario, which is really what they needed here. And I felt like they had that a little bit, but they weren't quite there, especially when Garou just keeps getting the one up on them. Just, he's barely dodging arrows. He's using this ball to take out the gun dude, and boom, like that, like half of the heroes are out just like that. Even though Garou's like got blurry vision, he's like, oh man, I got to take these guys out. And so Megain, the Gohan dude with the glasses, Garou starts going up against him because Megain is shooting his Gatling gun, and Garou's like, maybe I can't quite dodge this. So he starts running at Megain because he's like, okay, so he's not gonna want to shoot his teammate. So he uses Megain, and he's trying to get to Stinger. He wants to try to one-up a one-on-one Stinger, which, man, like, Garou's whole, like, plan of action, he just makes these plans on the fly, and it's instantly better than the hero's plan. And that's how he wins. He just uses the heroes against each other. And I thought that was so cool. Like, the way that this went about, the choreography, the way that we get to see inside Garou's head during this. And that's a part of this episode that I thought was so great, is getting into characters' heads. And we don't just get into his head, we get into Megain's head, and we get into Gatling Gun's head as well. And I thought that was really, really awesome. And it's an awesome blend, and I thought it was really well done with the character work intermingled with the action, which was awesome. And this is my favorite type of episode. So Gatling is firing. Garo starts beating the crap out of him again, and then he basically reels in Stinger, defeats Stinger, defeats McGain. I love this whole sequence and how he just kind of picks them off one by one. So now it's just Gatling and Garo just squaring off at each other, and Gatling gun goes to do his trump card, and Garo's like, hold on, there's a kid in that building there, like, we don't want him to die or whatever. And Gatling guns, it's another kind of parallel between these heroes and this monster hunter who wants to become a monster, who thinks monsters are the coolest. And we get a look into his head and showing that, hey, you know, a lot of times heroes team up against the monsters. That's not really fair, and the monster would have won otherwise, and these heroes are using tactics that aren't really fair. And now Garo is the monster in this scenario, and he's being teamed up against with heroes, and he's overcoming what that monster that he was talking about as a kid couldn't overcome. So I thought that's even more character progression for Garo. Like, he just keeps getting more and more interesting. And to top that off, he's basically trying to save this kid in a way. He wants to take on, like, Gatling's trump card attack, but at the same time, he doesn't want this kid to die. And Gatling gun, rather than saying, okay, he's probably lying, but there's a possibility there's a kid in there, as a hero, I shouldn't risk trying to use my trump card because it could kill this kid. But instead, it's interesting that he opts to call Garo on a possible bluff and just fire away. And this, I think, is when Garo kind of becomes, you know, I've heard people call him an anti-hero, which I haven't really agreed with yet, because he hasn't really gone out of his way. He hasn't really saved anybody. But I think at this point, now that he saves this kid, even though he was responsible for the kid being in danger, I think he's going more into that realm of anti-hero as opposed to just antagonist. So I thought that's awesome. So Gatling unleashes his attack, and Garo just bloodies up his knuckles in an awesome sequence, like deflects all of the bullets so that it doesn't hit where that kid was standing, looking through that peephole in the building. So it's really cool that they're also showing Gatling gun, like this character we don't know much about, but through a little bit of dialogue, we know a lot about how his mentality works and how kind of salty he is at the S-class heroes. He's like, you know what, this class system sucks, and I agree. Like, the class system is not, because these heroes are using the class system against other heroes. Like, it's showing that the heroes aren't really working together as a unit like they should be, and they bring that up too because the heroes really need to work together to defeat the Monsters Association. And I think that's going to be a major weakness when the Monsters Association really attacks. So Gatling basically sets out to prove that the class system is rubbish, almost like power levels are BS. But that's, in the end, we find out that that's not necessarily true. That's true to an extent, but really these S-class heroes are the creme de la creme, you know? I mean, A-class heroes, there are some A-class heroes that are up in that league, but for the most part, it's generally fairly accurate. You know, of course, when you get to the actual rankings of S-class heroes and stuff like that, it's not exactly accurate. I mean, look at Saitama. I mean, he should be top class S, but he's not. So he defeats Gatling, and Genos shows up, and it turns out that McGain booty called Genos to come in and help them out. And oh my god, when Genos showed up, I flipped my lid, man. I got so pumped. I mean, I thought in that instance when he showed up, I'm like, okay, Garo, this time Garo is down. Because at the end of the fight with Gatling, I literally thought Garo was just gonna pass out, because by all rights, he should be passed out by now. And but no, he gets into this amazing freaking sequence against Genos, this awesomely animated sequence, and it's awesome. I mean, this is possibly the best animation we've seen in this season so far. Now, of course, you might think differently. Of course, let me know which sequence you think has the best animation in this season so far. Not season 1, because we all know everything in season 1 is better than everything here. But oh my god, it was so good. Like the choreography, Genos goes in for a blast, but it shows that Megain is right behind Garo, so he decides to go for a punch instead. Like very subtle stuff there, and he goes in for a punch. He's about to hit Garo, and Garo blocks him with his knee. Like every little bit of this is amazing. I just can't stop thinking about it, man. So he hits him into the ground, and then Genos just, I mean, this is Genos' style. He's like no hesitation, and he's fast. Like, and Garo even notes that, oh my god, okay, this guy, you know, no hesitation. So he decides to use Watchdog Man's movements. It's kind of taking a note from, you know, maybe these movements will help. And it actually did. It actually helped him get the one up on Genos, and he takes his arm. Too bad Genos is a cyborg, and his arm staples or ties Genos to a tree, and that's basically the end of it. But it still is not the end of it. Oh my god, Garo, what is his limit here? And I think they even talk a little bit about limits in this too. Oh yeah, they talk about Megain and his limits with Saitama, and that's the other character that we get a little bit of insight into his mentality, and that's awesome. We get, you know, this random like side character, and we get a little bit of flashback and a little bit of cool stuff, and I love that. I love this show for that. Even a side character will get a little bit of character development, and I think it was done pretty efficiently in terms of the pacing and everything. So Garo basically captures, Genos basically captures Garo, and we get this parallel, this amazing, awesome parallel that I loved. I was just amazed by this. They cut to King, who has a sliver of health in the video game, and Saitama has full health. Now, in this instance, Saitama is Genos, and King is Garo. And that was awesome. And freaking King won. And that's basically what Garo just did to all those heroes, and what he's currently doing to Genos. Of course, Genos is going to win this. So, oh man, this is such a good episode, man. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think this was the best episode of the season? I definitely think so, at least for now. Of course, these are always just my initial thoughts since I record this right after watching the show. But freaking Bang shows up. Right then and there, it's like, okay, Garo's done for, and then Bang shows up, and it's like, okay, well, if Garo wasn't done for against Genos, he is certainly done for now. And we get this really touching flashback of Garo going into Silver Fang's dojo as a kid, and that, god dang, like every little bit in this, I think everything was on point in this episode, aside from some off-model stuff, which is par for the course for the season. So I don't really talk about it as much anymore. So anyway, what did you guys think of the episode? I thought it was amazing. Of course, drop your thought waves down in the comments below. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.